When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not. You should take the approach that you're wrong. Your goal is to be less wrong. You get paid in direct proportion to the difficulty of problems you solve. I think it's very important to have a feedback loop, where you're constantly thinking about what you've done. It is possible for ordinary people to choose to be extraordinary. Constantly seek criticism. A well-thought-out critique of whatever you're doing is as valuable as gold. No, I don't ever give up. I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated. I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. I'm just trying to think about the future and not be sad. The first step is to establish that something is possible, then probability will occur. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better. One of the biggest mistakes we made was trying to automate things that are super easy for a person to do, but super hard for a robot to do. Every person in your company is a vector. Your progress is determined by the sum of all vectors. I'm not trying to be anyone's savior. I just try to think about the future and not be sad. I think we have a duty to maintain the light of consciousness, to make sure it continues into the future. Life needs to be more than just solving problems every day. You need to wake up and be excited about the future. My children didn't choose to be born, I chose to have children. They owe me nothing, I owe them everything. Don't confuse schooling with education. I didn't go to Harvard, but the people that work for me did. Education is basically downloading data and algorithms into your brain. When I was a child, there's one thing I said: I never want to be alone. That's what I would say. Working hard to make useful products and services for your fellow humans is deeply morally good. I think that's the single best piece of advice. Constantly think about how you could be doing things better and questioning yourself. If you're trying to create a company, it's like baking a cake. You have to have all the ingredients in the right proportion. Buy and hold stock in companies where you love the product roadmap, sell where you don't. The only thing that makes sense to do is strive for greater collective enlightenment. At SpaceX, we specialize in converting things from impossible to late. My proceeds from the PayPal acquisition were $180 million. I put $100 million in SpaceX, $70 million in Tesla, and $10 million in SolarCity. I had to borrow money for rent. The idea of lying on a beach as my main thing just sounds like the worst. It sounds horrible to me. I would go bonkers. I would have to be on serious drugs. I'd be super duper bored. I like high intensity. One of the really tough things is figuring out what questions to ask. Once you figure out the question, then the answer is relatively easy. What makes innovative thinking happen? I think it's really a mindset. You have to decide. It's okay to have your eggs in one basket as long as you control what happens to that basket. When Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, "Nah, what's wrong with a horse?" That was a huge bet he made, and it worked. I wouldn't say I have a lack of fear. In fact, I'd like my fear emotion to be less because it's very distracting and fries my nervous system. I say something, and then it usually happens. Maybe not on schedule, but it usually happens. If you get up in the morning and think the future is going to be better, it is a bright day. Otherwise, it's not. Some people don't like change, but you need to embrace change if the alternative is disaster. I don't spend my time pontificating about high-concept things, I spend my time solving engineering and manufacturing problems. People should pursue what they're passionate about. That will make them happier than pretty much anything else. People work better when they know what the goal is and why. It is important that people look forward to coming to work in the morning and enjoy working. I'm interested in things that change the world or that affect the future, and wondrous, new technology where you see it, and you're like, Wow, how did that even happen? How is that possible?